California to share her wisdom and expertise with us. I'm talking about Cynthia Long. Cynthia is here with us. She is an award-winning continuous improvement leader and strategist. Over the last 20 years, her passion for Lean Six Sigma has led her to create, innovate, and be a revolutionary leader for continuous improvement. Cynthia, on behalf of our global audience of cross-industry leaders of excellence, innovation, and transformation, we are thrilled to have you here sharing your wisdom and expertise with all of us. Thank you so much for your generosity.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak. Let's go ahead and get started. You are leaders in your area. You are driven to succeed in the process of business transformation. And with that, you are focused on what that means to you. What is excellence? Today, we're going to talk about excellence, how to build a team that is excellence in the business to help drive that transformation. And what is your goal? What is it you hope to gain when you start with your business transformation? In this fast-paced world, how will the broken processes be fixed that no longer serve your business? And gone are the days of having the time to implement a center of excellence, build up your belts from the inside. That all takes time, money, and resources, all of which are real constraints in our world today. You're being asked to deliver more with less, and oh, can you complete that yesterday? So how and where do you begin to do a proper business transformation? I believe that there are three key questions that we should ask as leaders of transformation. What is the mission and the goal reason behind the transformation? And I always start with the desired outcome. So working in a fintech company, which Intuit is, we have Credit Karma Financial Services, we had Mint, we have a lot of different financial resources. We allow for taxpayers to get their refunds in advance. And so that's all related to the fintech world. And so when I'm working on a project, when my team is working on a project, I always try to start with the outcome. What is the outcome that we're trying to get from this? And then I work backwards from there. If this process is to change, it's to change for what? And then who is supposed to be involved in the change? We use something at Intuit called a DACI, which is for a decision, right? And most people are familiar with a RACI, which is responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. A DACI, the D is for decision. So sometimes a project gets so far and they need someone to make a decision. Should we implement choice A or choice B? You need to have a clear list of the correct stakeholders, and then who decides if there's a choice to be made, and then who's going to own it going forward, right? If the things go well, great. If they don't, how are you going to report on it, etc. So that's sort of where we begin, with the goal, and then who's involved in the change, and then how do I get there? Who do I need? What kind of skill sets do I need to get to this goal? Do I have it within the team I have? Are there cross-functional teams that need to be engaged? There are a lot of questions to ask in the very beginning about a project. We actually at Intuit implemented something called an X-Pack team. It started as a six-pack. We thought that was kind of funny, a six-pack in the US, that means like a six-pack of beer. But then we soon realized it was more than 6 people. So now we call it X for X number of people. We have this X-Pack where we have primary stakeholders, almost like the Knights of the Round Table, where we sit around the table and we decide the elements of the project, and then those primary people go and get the subsequent supporting teams that help, because you probably know this in your own organization, sometimes certain people are included in meetings and other teams aren't. And so it was important that we had all the right stakeholders at the table to begin with. So I want you to stay focused on your goal. Understand, is it removing waste from the process? Is it trying to build revenue for X or Y or Z service? I like to keep the goal printed on a page Sometimes I cut it out and tape it to my monitor if it's a super important project, just so I'm always thinking about that end result and I don't get hung up in the internal politics of what can happen in a transformation. It's really important to sort of stay focused on that goal. Okay, so getting from goal to action. How do you like this? Hey, set the goal, make a plan, get to work. Hey, stick to it. Looks easy, right? That's insane. Nobody can follow this. It doesn't work like that. We all know it's not simple. To get from goal to action is really a complicated process. And sometimes it's overlooked in business transformation. When you set a goal, you create an action plan, and then all of a sudden all chaos breaks out. Competing priorities, teams are removed to do other things, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe you can't get to the end goal as pretty as this picture. All right, now this is a page from South Park. And it's pretty famous. Forbes has written articles about it. It's a common issue in certain projects where, in this particular story, there were underwear gnomes and they were stealing the underpants, and they had a plan, and it was collect all the underpants and then make profit. But they didn't have anything defined for phase 2, right? That question mark. Sometimes this is what it feels like where I am. It's like, oh, we need to fix this service. And then our plan is what exactly? And so that's where my team comes in, is to help organize the plan, to really get that business transformation in place and working properly. But in reality, there are some key questions you can ask about the process to ensure that your transformation team is focused on the right outcome. And I use these 4 processes. And when I first started my team at Intuit, I was a team of 1. And people were, I'm a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt. And honestly, within my first 2 or 3 days at Intuit, this is no lie, people would go, oh, you're new, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt. I'm here in the business transformation team. That was the name of our team at the time. And they were like, oh, you're one of those. Oh, that's too bad. We tried having belts here before. It just didn't work. It wasn't good. It didn't work. They had all these negative stories, and they had negative experiences because they believed that people with my craft skills, transformation, Lean Six Sigma, continuous improvement, all of this, that we were really the people who came in, looked at a process and said, well, what you need to do is cut 6 headcount, right? That was their takeaway from my craft skill, which was enlightening to me, because I think my craft skill, I know my craft skill is so much more. If a team like mine, if a business transformation team is implemented in such a way that it is lifting the business, I said to our CEO once, I said, my vision is that my team is the water that lifts up the boats of the business. We are in support of the business. So it's not a standalone thing where we're coming in like consultants and we're making judgments. No, we're part of this. We're teammates. We're working side by side, elbow to elbow with you on the projects. And we're there because we have different craft skills that maybe haven't been utilized, or we constantly keep the focus on the customer viewpoint. So I used these questions in my very first deck that I ever made there, and I still continue to use them because I think it's important. There are competing priorities. So is the excellency of the process important to the business and retaining customers? Meaning, is this solving a real customer problem? And then, I'm sorry, my screen's got a little funky on me here. And so here's a real world example. The process necessary to support the business or other business processes, like, is it important? We have a service in our desktop product, and so desktop is an old technology. Most laptops now don't even come like with a CD-ROM kind of a thing, and usually our customers who use that service are my dad's age. They don't. I remember asking my dad one time, what do you have in your briefcase? And he was like, papers. And I thought, oh, because nobody has papers in their briefcase anymore. Everybody has a laptop, right? Or a pad, an iPad, or something that is, you know, other than paper. So he's old school, and so that is the kind of person who might use the TurboTax desktop. And there is a particular process in there that is, if you're filing a state tax return, you have to call in if you have a problem. That was a painful process for those customers, because when you call in for support, you needed an online ID. These were desktop people, they didn't necessarily have it, et cetera, et cetera. People had built a rumor around this service saying, oh, it costs more to run than money we make off it, et cetera. So there was this whole question around, is it needed for the business? Is it worth, we have a phrase into it where, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is the juice worth the squeeze? So yes, those customers are having pain. And yes, we don't want them to have pain, and we can make minor improvements, but is it worth going into the desktop product, changing that archaic product, and you know, for a small conglomeration of customers, a very small percentage, 1% or less of the desktop, which in desktop's a very small percentage of our total annual revenue. So the concept is really think about it from a business perspective. Yes, it's impacting customers, but it doesn't have to be a huge lift to fix it, but it's also not something that should take priority over other business processes that do have more impact to the customer. So is the process important to the business and retaining our customers? Is the process necessary to support the business or other business processes? Is the process crucial for customer satisfaction and retention? And improve based on dysfunction and importance and feasibility. And that's sort of where that desktop story comes in. Yes, it's important to retaining those customers. Yes, it's necessary to support that product line. It's crucial for satisfaction and retention, but it's not the top priority. So it's what we call here a project on the side of your desk. It's something that I'm looking into different ways to improve it without having to have a lot of engineers go work on the code because there's competing priorities. So the reason I mention this story is to get from your goal to action, you've got to be able to critically evaluate the projects that are coming to you. And in the beginning, when I started this team, nobody was coming to me. I was, having had the horror story of, oh, you people just cut headcount, I was determined that my team and my work and the work of my team was going to be valued by the business. So we started by just listening and delivering tools that we could really help the business understand things. We did swim lane process maps and end-to-end process maps that have really never been done before, with multiple lanes showing how the work handed off between teams and the tools on the bottom that it handed off to, things like that, that in the beginning they're like, oh, that is helpful, right? So we didn't come in with a full-on agenda of how to do things. We came in with these questions about how to help the business and what their situation was. So, okay, so you've set up your team and you've got your goals and you're focused on getting to that achievement. So what about change? Change, blame, and the stickiness factor. Change isn't hard because it's hard to make a change. It's hard because sticking with the change is almost impossible. So think of the last time that you set a resolution for yourself, like, I'm going to lose 10 pounds, or I'm going to work out more. Did you stick with it? Is it something that you really adhered to? I don't know how many times I have started a diet in my life. So obviously I'm not sticking with it. There is no stickiness factor. So you might stick with it for a month or two. Maybe you do a part of it for the rest of your life. But unless you're The Rock and you totally stick with it and you eat only protein, then you are not if you stick with it, you're not the norm. Most of us try it and it doesn't really stay, right? It doesn't stick with us. And as change leaders, you're both responsible and not responsible for the change, right? Your job is ideation, transformation. Maybe you're engaged in part of the implementation. And that's what I mean, that you probably own part of the elements being changed, but maybe you don't own training. I don't own training. They report to an entirely different team. If they can't do some work, we have to figure out ways to do it. But we have to have a common understanding of what the impacts are if certain stakeholders aren't engaged. So change is hard. You are and are not to blame, but like that slide said, the image said, like, blame, you lose your power if you start to blame other teams, right? So I try to approach this not as blame, but as partnership. So if training can't deliver, and I'm just picking on training for an example, please don't think they're not a great team, they are, but it's just for an example. If we need training and they are backlogged and they can't support that, what are the alternatives I have to support that? Can I get somebody to come in and help? Can I get another team? We have a service design team that has text experts that used to write training. Can some of them help, etc.? So there's ways to look at the process that in a transformation, it won't be adhered unless all the elements, all the stakeholders are brought into it and they see the value of the change and they're bought into that outcome. That can be from top leadership down, but I like to do it from low level up to make sure none of our projects happen if they're not tied to a KPI. So senior leadership is engaged, but it's like, how do we make the actual project have a significant change and make that change be sticky? So when I say stickiness, what I mean is the adherence to the new process over the old one. And there is a formula for it. I think Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book called The Tipping Factor years ago. And you know, there's a lot of theory out there in the marketplace, but really the best suggestion or advice I could give anybody is if you make a change, you must have a way to measure adherence to that change. You have to, because people will fall right back to their old ways. And so unless you're changing a tool, if you're adding new features into a tool that you want somebody to follow, if you've got a contact center or something like that, you have to have a way to adhere, to ensure and measure that they are adhering to that change, that they're not falling back, they're not skipping over it, oh, I forgot about it, whatever. So that's when it's time to be a data-driven transformation, right? Up to now, I've been talking theoretically about things. I haven't really spoken too much about data. Stickiness is all about the data, right? If you can, remove that old way. Just like in the diet example, don't buy the ice cream in the grocery store. If you bring it home, you're probably going to eat it, right? If in a moment of weakness. So it's the same thing for any change. Folks revert to the easiest way to get things done. Some of our tax experts have come back year over year to support Intuit and our customers, and we love them and they're terrific, but they are familiar with the old way to do things, and so retraining them and getting them to stick with the new thing is very, very important. So try to make sure if at all possible, the change is the only way to get the X thing done so that you can measure accurately who's adhering to the process and you can improve that process and be sure that you've controlled the improvement and it's staying where it was. And I'm going to talk a little bit about training because much like my father having papers in his briefcase, we, all of us on this phone call and out there in the transformation world have to think about Gen Zers, Gen Alphas that are coming up. We have to start thinking about our business processes being consumable by all generations, especially if you have a service out there in the marketplace. Actually, that's everybody. Aren't we all really services companies, right? So it has to be consumable, meaning that we have more and more people from those younger generations coming into the workforce, and we need to lean into the way they learn and the way that they absorb information. Forward leaning, meaning if we're talking about training, think gamification, think prize and recognition, think 1-minute VODs, videos on demand. That's a huge thing, like a 1-minute training, a 1-minute training. Some of the coolest companies out there have these little 1-minute VODs to learn their products. It's terrific because I love it, because if I have a function that I haven't used before and I want to go use it, I know I can go out there and get a little quick training and be done with it. So think something that is going to give you the stickiness that you need to keep that change in place. And as change leaders, if you remember only one thing from my talk today, remember that you, as a change leader, a transformative leader, have the power to make effective and lasting changes that will lift up the business. So the right team is going to get you everywhere. I'd like for you guys to notice that everybody's wearing capes, because in business transformation, we are superheroes. So what is your vision for your team? Now, I'm not talking about the outcomes for the business, but when you start a transformation team, what is your vision for the team? And I set goals on that. I gave myself some ideation around how did I want my team to actually be. So do this for yourself. Do you want your team to be loved and appreciated? Do you want them only to be in key initiatives? Do you want them to support small things for people as well? I wanted my team to have a recognition and to trust each other, to bond as a team and support each other. And the fit of the team is significant. And I'm not a sports person, but I do know there are sports analogies that might resonate with people, so bear with me. The fit of the team is significant. Bringing someone into a high-functioning team that doesn't fit can demoralize the entire team. And I've seen this. I did this once accidentally. The person that I interviewed, I thought would be a good fit for the team, but when they actually came on board, they weren't. We always say we're building the airplane as we're flying it, kind of a theory, and you have to be able to like run and jump on the moving train, and this person just couldn't do it. They had excellent craft skills, but they didn't have that right fit for the team, and it was slowing everybody down. And really high performers on my team were performing less because they were either trying to support that person, which was slowing them down in their normal day job, or they were just kind of like, man, well, that guy doesn't have to do this stuff, why do I? So I, as a leader, am really focused on getting that right team built and making sure that the team has that, like we have a logo. I don't know if you've noticed it in the upper right corner of the slides, it says CIX. That is actually a logo that we made for my team. Every piece of work that we do internally at Intuit, we put our own logo onto, because we're branding ourselves as this team, right? So I have a few things that are really key to making sure you get that right team and build that right team, right? I have some questions that I always ask when I interview people, and they might not be related to the actual craft skills that they have. It's just, I want to understand their personality. Joining Intuit and being part of a transformation team that isn't like a center of excellence is really difficult. So do I have the people who are always going to represent the team well, that they have the right elements in their personality? I can teach you craft skills. I can't teach you a personality. I can't teach you of a mindset to be of service to. That's something people have learned their whole lives growing up, in my opinion, and it's really hard to change somebody who's like all about the craft and not about the team. And so my team has a strong identity. There's a reason that sport teams build a reputation. And just for a minute, bear with me, think about the Cubs. That's a baseball team. And weren't they like the losingest team in baseball for like, I don't know, 100 years or something? And but they had very loyal fans, right? And they were a strong team, even though they weren't winning all the time. And I'm not saying your team shouldn't win, but I'm saying that team identity is important just for your team. So what is the thing that your team can identify around? My team, we use animals. We're pink zebras. And it's like, why are they pink zebras? Well, because we aren't like the other animals in the zoo, right? We're transformation. We're not even like the other zebras. That's why we're pink zebras, because we all have Lean Six Sigma craft skills, but we're not operating like a proper Lean Six Sigma continuous improvement shop. And there are people at Intuit who were on my team and they've gotten rolled into other jobs, and they came up with a phrase that they say to me all the time: once a pink zebra, always a pink zebra. To me, that's a strong identity for the team. It was built from clear goals, supporting the team where they are with their craft skills, and then getting the heck out of the way, right? My job for that team of highly talented people is to remove their blockers and make them feel great about the work that they're doing, so that I can then go focus on the other criticals in the business, like trying to find the next best thing for us to do as a baseline craft skill for trying that is of value to the business, et cetera. So that's kind of my advice on the team. To me, that's everything. I love building teams where, I mean, I still to this day, I just last week met up with somebody who'd been on one of my teams 20 years ago. We stayed in touch because that right fit builds a relationship that's a lifelong relationship, because you went through battle together, you went through successes together, you sweated together, you laughed together, and you delivered awesome together. Okay, so the dying art of ROI. And why is ROI dying? Well, I've been building a team of continuous improvement folks for 5 years, and not once in 5 years has anyone asked me about the ROI we're saving. Now I share it. I actually use this little app called Powtoons, and I make these little like 1-minute things about the great work that we're doing, but no one really asks it. And I think it's because the pace of business is moving so fast that often people forget to ask strictly about that ROI. They want to know things like, how is the change going to impact the service or increase sales from the change, or et cetera, but nobody really asks on the return on investment per se. I have an entire deck around the various types of ROI, but I can barely get people to talk to me about it. And it could be that I talk to people all the time and they're like, oh my God, Cindy, I don't want to hear another thing from you. But I think it's because ROI is not a key performance indicator of things that we do. We just want to know, is it having a positive impact? Okay, then it's probably worth it, right? So I think the ROI focus may be dying, but you can still drive effective changes with this information. So show how much waste, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but there are in Lean Six Sigma 8 deadly wastes, right? Transportation, overproduction, et cetera, which, here's a real world example. Remember when COVID hit and suddenly there weren't enough masks to go around? I guarantee there was a black belt somewhere who had talked to the mask makers and said, you know, you're storing too many masks and that's costing you money to have all these storage buildings to store full of masks, and you should do what's called just-in-time delivery. And that's great in a world that's not impacted by a pandemic, but it was a little nerve-wracking in the beginning, right? So that is like one of the 8 deadly wastes that we would be getting rid of. And so I talk about that to people, right? Like our data isn't, I can't always understand from a tax expert. I know how long they do certain things, but not minute by minute for each element. And so it's maybe not easy to understand if I improve one element of their process, the actual time that I'm reducing for it. So we use voice of the customer sometimes. I just try to use different elements to show the return on investment. Now we do Gemba walks, where Gemba is like to walk in the place. And so we can show how many widgets, you know, that we found that were good or bad and in the process, and how we think it should be improved. And if we did, how much time we would save from that. We can do that, but we can't do it on everything. So ROI isn't everywhere anymore. And if it is in your world, that's groovy. But in mine, I try to show it with other ways, like the return on the investment in this transformation team is yielding you this. It may not be like we cost $1 million a year and we save you 2 million every year, so you know you're okay. It's more along the lines of we reduced this waste and we improved this function, and the customers are happier and the experts who work the process are happier, etc. So I'm also going to talk a little bit about reputation, because reputation is huge and into it. Like I said, when I first started there was some bad feelings about the team that I had, or my craft skills. And I understood quickly that building a reputation of supporting the business and making sure that when you're in a meeting room, you're there to help, and people can count on you to deliver what you say. So I try to stay focused on the positive elements. And I want you to remember this, that transforming the business is imperative. Transforming the mindset is imperative to the lasting business transformation, right? You've got to get people to see your team in a certain way, to trust that the business transformation is really helping. In most teams in the beginning, nobody wanted to slow down to have my team join in, but they learned slowly over time, and now we're in demand. Like I said, we built that XPAC circle and we lead the XPAC, and people are really excited about it, and they know, oh, we better have the XPAC here, but it wasn't like that in the beginning. So you will face daunting odds when you begin as a transformation leader, and you have to just focus on what your end goal is going to be, keep your reputation in mind, and transform the mindset of those that you work with in order to have that lasting business transformation. So now I want you to go forth and transform, right? These happy people on this image, they're running towards the topic, the goal. So to drive lasting and effective transformation in your business, to drive operational excellence, keep the focus on being the water that lifts the boat of the business. I've mentioned that before. I'm not driving a change for my own sake. I'm driving a change for the business, in service to the business, to make it easier to get that business in and out of the harbor, if we're still sticking with the boat analogy. And then focus on the relationships, right? I focus on the relationships within your team. That team and you should have the best relationships, and you support each other, and they love and support each other. And I mean that in a business love kind of way, like you love working with them, it's good energy between you, all of that, and that your business partners love and respect you, and they listen to your voice because your voice is carefully cultured to share the right information. Shine bright. And by that, I mean, tell leadership about your wins. Do that VOD creation where you're showing a little 1-minute video of all the waste that you improved, and the cool things that your team has been engaged in. And you know, I do these talks because I love to get back to the marketplace, but also my boss thinks it's super cool when I do these. I started talking to him. I'm like, I love doing these talks. He's like, yeah, go do them, because then he has something he can talk to senior leadership about. You know, how we're driving transformation within the company, and we're change leaders in the marketplace as well. And also, one of the last things I want to say is, remember that you can build a transformative team that will lift the business to the next level. So thanks, guys.
Cynthia, thank you so much for tremendous coverage and presentation on important topics of leadership, of team building, and transformation. So I'm going to ask you to hit that button on stop showing your presentation screen to the audience so that they can see us on the big screen. There we have it. And I am there are questions that came through the GoToWebinar, but also through LinkedIn. So I'm looking at multiple monitors here, and I'll capture a few of them and relay them to you. So curious about a number of people ask about your own journey at Intuit. How did a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt end up at Intuit? And then, you know, what does that look like from, you know, you're one of them, you know, to I am one of, we are part of this same team, and we're lifting, we're the water lifting the boat of the business. And so tell us a little bit about, you know, coming into an organization that may have had maybe not a positive experience with Lean Six Sigma to start, and then, you know, having to change that perspective and perception from within.
Yeah.
What was that journey like for you?
It was painful. It was painful, and I'll tell you how I got to Intuit. I had worked at Cisco for almost 5 years, and they had a reorg, and I ended up working for another manager, and I got laid off. So I then found this business transformation role advertised, and I thought, oh, okay, that's kind of, and that's what they called it, business transformation. And the person that I was working for at the time at Intuit didn't have a very clear vision of it, and it was a little fumbly feeling on her from her part. It felt a little fumbly to me, but that was actually a huge opportunity, because I was like, oh, okay, she doesn't have the vision, so I can bring my craft skills. But after hearing like, we don't like you people, it's like, okay, I'll sort of not hide my craft skills, but I'll be the pink zebra. I'll be the oddball in the room who's saying maybe weird things to people, but I'm also going to deliver. Like the first few things that I built, I mentioned that process map. I was sitting in a meeting and people were talking about things and I didn't understand what they were talking about. So I had to build the map even just for my own understanding. But then we are lucky at Intuit, we have these huge printers where you can print a process map like 100 feet long, if that's how long it is, and we can tape it up we have a design room, we can take it up. And so there were tools that I could bring pretty quickly. I did a Pareto chart as well. Now, Pareto chart is not necessarily a Lean Six Sigma craft tool. Lots of people use them everywhere in the marketplace, but you would have thought I hung the moon when I showed this Pareto chart. The leadership at Intuit went bananas for it. And I thought, oh, okay, they want to see visual pictures of how I'm figuring out the elements of truth here. And so that's what I went with. I tried a little something. Did it get good reception? Kind of. Okay, well, maybe I'll try that again later. And I'll try this thing. Oh, yeah, they really like that. Okay, so I'll make sure in all the projects we do that thing. And then after about a year and a half, a senior VP came in who had been a vice president at Apple. And he said, oh, well, at Apple, we have this team called BPR, Business Process Reengineering. And he said, you should lead that team. And I went, okay, I'll lead that team. And that business transformation turned into that, which now turned into continuous improvement, which is the CI and the X. I also manage a couple testing teams, which is the X test. But he was a big supporter of the craft and growing my team, et cetera. So I did have a leader who was helping drive the change. And he still to this day, he doesn't mentor me as much as he relies on like the core strengths that we have as a team. And he often just flips things over the fence to go, hey, do you think, test this tool and see if it would work for us, or things like that. So there's a lot of innovation that he sends my way. So I think having a good ally in the leadership, I've never reported to him. He's always been in a different pillar of work, but he values the craft and has been, but it was slow. It was very slow. Trust me, there was a year and a half, almost 2 years where I'm like, I'm not really doing my craft here, and I'm trying to build something, but I was a one-man band for a good 9 months, and then I was 2, and then in 2 years I was 4, and then I was 5, and then we reduced during COVID, and it was a whole thing. But it's slow, so have faith and reach out on LinkedIn if you're losing faith, because we have to support each other as leaders in this as well. So that's my answer.
Very, very interesting. Thank you for your transparency and sharing this. I was actually a keynote speaker in Orlando just last week, I think. It's a bit of a blur, but on the Lean Six Sigma World Conference, and I was speaking to a lot of the items that you're discussing here.
I spoke there.
You were there?
I was there. Yeah, I was there last week.
So there we go. We're in Orlando at the same time at Lake Buena Vista. We just didn't see each other. That's terrific. So
I think I remember your talk.
You're part of my talk. Wow, that's fantastic. So you heard me say that I have been for over 3 decades a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt, but for most people that sounds like a dangerous mental condition. I'm sure you remember that one.
Yeah, it's the one way to get people not to talk to you at a cocktail party.
That's right. That's right. Excellent. Well, that's great, Cynthia. So, what you're describing here is really interesting because, and people have mentioned this in the comments. A lot of people talk about business transformation and they were talking about technologies and all that, but there's some really the reason that a lot of these transformations fail, this very well from the work that you do, is that it's not typically because of the technology. It's not the idea, it's not the methods that's being used, it's the people behind it, and specifically their ability to collaborate, their ability to build change together that's
Yes.
lasting. Like and you need some expertise behind that to make it work. Collaboration is not something that emerges naturally in an organization. So you talked a lot about the mechanics and the tools and the techniques for building a collaborative environment, which is so important. So go ahead.
No, do you have a question that somebody asked about that?
The question is, on that collaboration aspect, are you working at Intuit right now? Are you in a specific area of the business? Are you going across multiple areas? Because Intuit's a big company now, and the audience was curious about at what level you're operating.
Yes, so I am in the TurboTax pillar of work, but so there's TurboTax, QuickBooks. We acquired Credit Karma. We acquired a company called, I always forget the monkey one, MailChimp. And so we have these different pillars of work, and we're kind of separate pillars tied together, but TurboTax and QuickBooks are sisters. And so we do work collaboratively. I have a continuous improvement wiki page in which somebody in QBL who's a black belt, he's an awesome black belt, he found me, he's like, oh, you're a master black belt, can I run things by you, can you mentor me a little bit? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And so he and I stay in touch, and then from that relationship we've been able to branch out across other areas, his leadership, my leadership, to try and get, if we find a good tool, we try to leverage it with them to see if it would be effective for them as well. So it is all about the reputation. To me, the team, I want to be able to trust my team to go into a meeting and leave with the same reputation of excellence, that, oh my God, oh, thank God so-and-so's here from Cynthia's team because they're really going to help. That partnership feeling, leaving people with that feeling, is part of building that trust with your stakeholders to build that stickiness factor, right? Because the only way you're going to get asked to participate in projects instead of being stuffed down people's throat is if they know that they can rely on your team to lift up the project, to move barriers they didn't even understand. And Intuit, we have a lot of process maps we go through that everybody talks about the happy path. Everybody talks about the happy path. And I don't know if you have ever worked in customer service, but no customer, I'm telling you, it's nobody follows the happy path. Everybody makes their own way in the world. So there's a lot of unhappy path things that nobody was preparing for. And of course, the outcome of that is chaos. So that's one of the things that we started to do, is like, okay, and we will take on challenges in tax season that we don't intend to own long term. So we do show up and go, all right, we're going to handle this for this tax year, guys. But come next tax year, we have some down months, like kind of October, November, December a little bit, and so we can work to get the right team to own that. But in the moment, if there's a crisis, my team will own it in spirit of partnership. To make sure the change is effective, or the implementation, or that we're removing roadblocks from the overall business.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
Cynthia, thank you so much for sharing. I mean, we're up on time here, but I want to, provide you some feedback on the comments and some of them reflect what you and I have briefly discussed here. And that is that, thanks for your authenticity. Thanks for sharing transparently, the hard work that's really necessary to foster a collaborative environment and build structure behind change and transformation, just the right level of structure that allows it to the transformation to be effective. Because as I don't know if you're here and you listen to some of the other speakers, but they talk about the amazing things about digital transformation, but every one of them realized that 70% plus of digital transformations are not meeting their intended outcomes. So and a lot of it is because there is a lot of hope around it, but there's the minimalistic structure that you talked about that provides that consistent approach and
That's right.
and the right tools and techniques can really help the people to align and to deliver the results that you're expecting from that transformation.
That's right. And thank you so much for having me come speak. It's been an honor to share my story here. And Jose, I guess I'm going to see you at the next conference where we're both
That's
presenting.
right. Heading out, and in fact, since you gave me this plug, you see, we had not even rehearsed that the next conference here. Well, between now and April 4th, I'm going to be going around the world between now and then. But on April 4th, we're going to be back with another Business Transformation Operational Excellence Summit live event like this one. This one was focused on financial services. The next one on April 4th will be focused on process mining. So it's a specific technology focus on process mining, because one of the quotes that I like to use as well is that technologies can reshape the way that we work and the way we live, but technology also can make stupid happen at the speed of light. So we got to pick the right ones. So we're going to do a deep dive on process mining and what is the hype and what is the reality of process mining for value creation. And we're going to have 4 process mining experts in real organizations who are implementing it and they're struggling with it and having success, but we want to show the full range of experiences that people are having in process mining. So that's going to take place live here on April 4th. Everybody who is registered for that one has access to all the videos live, on demand later on. So Cynthia, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and expertise with our global audience of cross-industry leaders of excellence, innovation, and transformation. We really appreciate your insights today.
Thank you, my honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Cynthia Long, a continuous improvement leader at Intuit, sharing her wisdom and expertise and the real battles that we have to fight within organizations to bring structure and discipline to our transformation efforts, so that we have better outcomes than 20 or 30% success rate. So we are looking to you see a very good correlation between organizations that take a structured approach to their transformation versus the ones that just have a vision, but they don't really have a very good systematic approach on how to get there. And remember, there is no digital transformation without a real business and cultural transformation ahead of the digital transformation. A lot of times people want to put this automation first, and it rarely works. Remember, it's always the secret for success is not automation. The secret of success starts with collaboration, and then elimination, and then reduction, and only when you're at that level that you should consider automation. Unfortunately, technology is like a seductive lover, and people think that automation will solve all their problems. It may in the short run and create many new ones in the mid to long run. So those organizations that do it right, they understand that there is no digital transformation without business transformation, and there is no successful business transformation without a successful cultural transformation. So culture, business, and then digital transformation, always collaboration, elimination, reduction, and then automation. So those are parting words. I want to say thanks to so many who were part of this journey today. They focus on financial services, starting with Brian Raffel, who is the conference leader who make this all happen with the speakers, with the technology that we use here, with the thousands of participants who are consuming this content live, and many hundreds who are going to be consuming this content on their own time via the recorded sessions. I want to say thanks to Vijay Bajaj, who is the CEO of Proqis Digital, who has been doing this cross-industry conferences, engaging nearly 1 million subscribers around the world. And thank you, Vijay, for your leadership. And of course, our sponsors. We wouldn't be able to deliver this to a global community at no cost if it was not for our terrific sponsors. And specifically for this financial services conference, we want to say special thanks to iGraphics for making it all happen for us, for bringing this world-class virtual events to this qualified global audience. Thanks to our terrific speakers. We had speakers from iGraphics, we had speakers from Oracle, the head of innovation from Amazon, and of course we finish with Cynthia and Intuit. Great organizations with great leaders who are making it happen right now. Remember that our next conference is process mining live on April 4th. Before I finish the session, go into the chat. I put the link there. Click on that link and register, because by being registered to this conference, you're not automatically registered for the next one. You have to register one at a time. And if you do, then you have access to all those materials at your own. You can watch it live, or you can watch the recorded sessions at a later time. Carry on the conversation on LinkedIn. Please take a minute, go into LinkedIn under the post, under my name for BTOES Financial Services Live, and put a comment of thanks and gratitude to our sponsors and speakers for being so generous in providing these opportunities for these conversations for all of us globally. And keep on. You can connect with all the speakers there. We have hyperlinks to the speakers. You can click on that and request a connection. Let them know. Add a note saying that I have met you at BTOES Financial Services Live. Our speakers get hundreds of connection requests, and they usually do ignore those that they don't understand where the connection request came from. So make sure you let them know. And again, keep leading with purpose, passion, discipline, and resilience. So there's no way that we can predict the future ahead of us, but we can create the future together. So let's collaborate, let's learn, share, and create the future that we want to have. So long for now. From San Antonio, Texas to the world, José Pires checking out, and letting you know that we are going to continue our journey on LinkedIn. You can follow what we're doing. Have over 100 events going on in person and virtually the rest of 2023. Hope we can connect in person in some of those in the future. Take care, everybody.